All right, we are live. Good evening. You're watching a Clubb Tracks TV show, and I'm your host, Noel Clubb. And welcome to Spank Sports World Network here on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app from respective iOS and Android app stores, as the app is absolutely free. And while you download, please make sure to rate and leave us a comment, because we always want to hear from you folks. We sure do. And Zingo TV can also be, folks who see us is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, and Fire TV sticks, and Roku. Roku sticks are also available on all smart TVs from 2016 forward. Well, all the viewers watching the Clubb Tracks TV show, watching around the world. Thank you, folks. Well, thanks again for joining us. Okay, it's time to introduce our very cool special guest here on the show this evening. So he is a legendary rock and roll manager starting back in 1963 to the present day. He's originally from Manchester, England. He managed the bands and artists such as Hermits, Andrew Lloyd Webber, 10cc, and Barclay James, just to name a few, folks. Well, he released also his new tell-all book, which is called I'm Into Something Good. Please welcome Harvey Lisberg, the legendary, folks, joining us here on the show. Thank you, Harvey. Thanks for joining us. Hey, how are you doing, sir?
Hi, Mel. Nice meeting you.
You too.
Thanks for the intro.
Well, very good. So saying before the show, I love your portrait behind you, John Lennon. I'm a huge John Lennon fan, huge Beatles fan. That's a beautiful portrait you got there behind you.
It was a wonderful present on my 70th birthday.
Yeah.
Awesome. Carol bought it me, and it's cracking.
Yeah. It is. Even for right here from me on the show, it's very striking. So right on. Very cool. Very good.
He's definitely one of my favorites.
Absolutely right. I mean, it's in so many ways. I mean, in terms of the culture we've done for us as inspiration, self-expression, the freedom of spirit, everything he's kind of basically contributed to. Really, in my opinion, as a human aspect to him. Never mind the musician, the artist that he was, being such an amazing person that he was, but he was added to the culture and to us as really human beings. I thought was even more tremendous. It's kind of the alley of boxing. In terms of music, he's like the alley of in music. He's just so inspirational beyond what he's doing in his scene. So
very artistic. Love it.
So you're originally from Manchester, England. So we're kind of discussing before the show. So where are you now these days? Where are you living these days?
I'm in Rancho Mirage, California, which is about 10 miles east of Palm Springs, which is about 120 miles east of Los Angeles. At the moment, enjoying the remnants of a hurricane, Hillary.
The Manchester weather, unfortunately, you're getting. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yes, it's haunting me.
Yeah, please go away. I hear you.
No, actually, in California, when it rains, I was always amused because I used to be a snowbird, come 6 months of the year. And as soon as it rained, everybody in California sort of went out. The kids were playing in the rain. It was exciting. To me, who lived in Manchester, and sort of the equivalent of Seattle, getting poured on every bloody day. I'd had enough rain. But exactly. When America, Andrew Gold in particular, who I used to manage, he just loved it when it rained. He just went out in the rain, and that was it.
That's so cool. I love that. Those two exact polar opposites. That's pretty cool, actually. Singing in the rain in this case here, right? Singing in the rain.
Yes, Gene Kelly.
Yeah, Gene Kelly, exactly. Another classic right there. So it's going back to, so you're going back to really the first person invasion, where it all kind of started with 1963, 1964, roughly in that circa. So how did, what was the first spark for you that kind of turned you on to, oh, wow, like something's happening right now? Was it a song, a band? What kind of sparked that moment for you?
Well, I was studying to be an accountant. I got a university degree to avoid the drudgery of 5 years, but still had to have 2 years. I played the piano and I learned the guitar, and I was interested in writing songs. And I wrote a pile of songs which I thought were great at the time, but subsequently didn't stand up to the various other great songwriters of today. And I couldn't get arrested with these songs, so I decided, right, I'm going to get my own band, and they'll do my songs. So I put an advert in the Manchester Evening News, and we got a band, and I went to this church hall in Collingwood. It's a suburb of Manchester, where this band was on. And after each number, they played the usual stuff. Every band in those days played the same things. Johnny Be Good.
Right.
I saw her standing there. Every band did their version of the same thing. As it happens, this band was called Herman and the Hermits. And they did Mrs. Brown actually in the act on that night.
Wow.
And after each number, the stage was charged, screaming girls. I thought I'd won the national lottery. I thought, this is it. This is fantastic. And I went back to Peter's house and I started fiddling on the piano, Jerry Lee Lewis, Tell Me What I Say. And Peter said, well, do you want to join the band? I said, no, I want to manage the band and I want you to do my song.
Very cool.
Anyhow, I got the B-side on the first record, I'm Into Something Good, a track called Your Hand in Mine, which I wrote with my partner, Charlie Silverman.
Interesting.
And my father, who was musical as well, very musical, he played in the army band when he was in army in Italy. And he also was the first violinist at his school. And he listened to these songs that I'd written. He said, well, they're not that great, are they? And I showed him the check that we got on the first royalty statement, where the B side gets the same as the A side, which is ludicrous. So I was in the Exalted company of Goffin and King, getting the same amount of money for the mechanicals. And I showed my father the check, and
Wow.
he says, well, maybe I was wrong. And I said, no, you weren't. They were crap. Don't worry about it. It paid for our house.
Wow, that's huge. That's your first real experience, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was getting the band. And then in the meantime, I love the Beatles. We'd been inundated with American music
Right.
since I was born. The Moon and June, American crooners. Every English act did an American accent when they did their songs. They couldn't sing with an English accent. So even Rod Stewart did the police. Well, we don't say police, we say police. If you said police in England, they'd think you're mad. So anyhow, the Beatles came along, fresh, humorous, brilliant, and they actually sang with their own accent, English, and that revolutionized everything. And I just became an ardent fan. Every time their record came out, I was there on the first day. I got the albums, wore them out, and my father must have been going mad. I was competing with Puccini, an opera, and I had to get my records on all the time. And I just loved the Beatles, and they revolutionized everything. And Brian Epstein also became quite an icon, at the time, because it was like the fifth Beatle or whatever. He was
Right.
very
Yeah.
important. And I thought, well, if he can do it, why can't I do it? He had no background, no experience with the music
Exactly.
industry. So he was kind of the guide that I tried to follow with
Yeah.
reasonable success considering.
That's a
So,
good point. That's good because to my understanding, Brian Epstein came out of a family business that ran basically like a department store, and he looked after himself, the record department, to my understanding. Then somehow he got his what kind of involved with
yes, I think it was a furniture store.
at the cavern, and then the kind of that's the beginning of it all. But that's how I understood it. Was he was again? Yeah, you're right. He was totally not related to the industry whatsoever. It was a whole new industry, right? It was a whole brand new thing.
Absolutely. Everybody wanted to write their own songs and have their own band, and everything followed. And he was Liverpool, where everything was Liverpool. And Billy Kramer, the Dakotas, Jerry and the Pacemakers, Cilla Black, on and on and on. And I was in Manchester, and we sort of had a success with Herman and the Hermits. And whatever happened, I was going to stay in Manchester. I was not going to fall for the three-car trip. I'm going to have to go to London to record and have to go to TVs in London. Everything was in London, or you go and live in New York. And Epstein ultimately did move to. He did move to London. Had a lovely flat in Belgravia, which I visited him on one occasion. So yeah, and everything. The Beatles led the way, and it wasn't just music. It was young people. It was fashion. All the fashions changed.
Yeah.
People didn't have to wait for their senior partners of firms to die to get the job. So 23-year-olds were getting top positions. It was a total youth revolution. Those were just lucky that we lived in those days. They were so exciting.
Absolutely. So true. But you're right. It was a totally just complete, revolution. Really was in terms of everything. The culture, like you're saying, the fashion as well, and the mindset, and it's more
And
about
art, everything.
expression, love, free love.
I think it was always free.
Oh yes, all the good stuff was free at least. Being a freedom of speech and love and all those are good things too. But yeah, it's just such a wonderful period. So the Beatles for you was well up to the first, like for a lot of people was the spark and the moment. You ever chance to ever see Beatles live in during your?
Yes, well, what happened with that was I started to manage an artist called Graham Goulman, who's a songwriter, and he was in the band, which I managed to get him to move away from. And I used to go and write with him daily on like a 9 to 5 office thing to try and get him going. And his first song that he did was For Your Love. And I said, right, that's a number one. That is a number one. I had great ears for hits. I knew a hit. When I heard I'm into something good, I knew it was a hit. House of the Rising Sun, I knew it was number one. I didn't need telling. I just had that was my shtick, whatever you want to call it.
Gotcha.
And so I said, well, I'm going to take it to the Beatles. He said, oh, no, you're not. The Beatles won't do anybody else's material.
Right.
But yeah, they will. They did Change. They did all these covers on their first album. Yeah, it's a great song. What's the difference? So I went to the Hammersmith Odeon with Graham, where the Beatles were appearing. And behind me was a guy called Ronnie Becker, who was our publisher. And I said, look, there's the song. I want you to get it to the Beatles and tell me what they think of it after the interval. And he comes back sheepishly and he says, well, would you mind if I played it to the Yardbirds? I said, yeah, sure, I'd mind if you played that. I want that to go to the Beatles. So anyhow, I said, well, the Yardbirds would really like, would you meet their manager? So I said, okay, I'll meet their manager. So I met Giorgio Gomelsky, this charismatic Russian, looks like Rasputin with his beard down to his sort of thing. He was very persuasive. He just, can I try it? Yeah, okay, try it. And they tried it. And they used a harpsichord, which really was very effective. Eric Clapton threw a fit because he was in a band that was a blues band from the traditional rhythm and blues band, the Yardbirds, Long John Baldwin, the Hoochie Coochie Man, Rod Stewart and the Steam Packet. They were all interested in American rhythm and blues. They didn't want any pop songs. And he left the band. So they got a very cheap replacement, Jeff Beck. You know.
Yeah, and then Jimmy Page. Exactly. I mean, what a curse that is, eh?
Unbelievable.
Back Jimmy Page. That's big step down, bigger step down. I hear you.
Gentlemen, I've been trying to join you for the last 20 minutes. I don't know what has happened, but I'm thrilled to be here. I really didn't want to miss Harvey. I apologize, guys. I don't know what happened. It wasn't allowing me in.
Hey, you're on. You're back
it's like
on.
John Lennon getting into America.
I do want to make a statement. Are you okay with that, Noel? Just to speak on behalf of the Writers Guild. We're in a tough spot, right? So
give me 1 second. Let me just give you a full, proper introduction, and then we'll far away from there.
Okay, so, thank you very much, sir.
All right, because he is finally here, folks. He made it. Like he's saying, it's like Harvey said, it was tough with John Lennon making it back into New York City the first time around back in 1980. But here he is. He's a very cool solo artist, folks, out in New York City. And of course, our very own co-host of the show, the lead singer and guitarist of the cool band New York City, The Handful. Please welcome our very own Mark Cool Dude, Duda.
Thank you very much, brother. It's an honor, and it's an honor to meet you, Harvey. I've heard many things, and ever since I knew you were coming on the show, I've been listening to Wall Street Shuffle on repeat because some of these songs just are just relevant for all times, right?
Yeah.
And so what we're going through now, and again, I've got my Writers Guild of America East shirt on here in solidarity with my brothers and sisters. Listen, we've got a few scary things happening right now, right? So some of it's the old school bit about, well, if we take our talent and we don't pay them by October or November, they will just cave in because they have families and they can't afford to be out of work, which is bad enough. The other part of it is, and we now have this sort of scary artificial intelligence stuff that's happening where, the studio bosses don't want to pay for content anymore. They want to control all the content. They don't want to pay the talent for content. And so, you know, I'm a singer songwriter myself, right? But I do have songs that have been in movies, and we're really, as creative people, have to pull together and have some solidarity on this issue. And so I had asked Noel if it would be okay if I made a statement, and Noel, I appreciate that very much tonight, and thank you, Harvey, as well, for allowing me to make a statement. We just need to be unbowed, and we need some resolve on this. Because I think there's, you know, it's generally like we talk about in the Wall Street Shuffle. You know, it's life's like a shit sandwich. The more money you have, the less shit you have to eat. So that's where we find ourselves now. So
Great.
thank you guys.
Fight the good fight. That's right. Fight the good fight.
Yeah.
Good luck with it.
Yeah.
Well, right on. Well said, sir.
So did you guys get to 10cc yet? I mean, listen.
Not yet. We're
right.
getting there. We were getting there, Mark. Almost there.
Yeah, big fan. So okay, I'll let you proceed as you were then. Thank you.
Oh, fire away, Mark. No, excuse. Fire away. You have a question? Fire away, my friend.
Now, I always listen. 10cc is one of those bands where they have so many great songs, and if you a lot of people don't even know those songs are 10cc. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, they're good songs, I think, tend to outlast fads, production values, trends, things like that, right? Because they're so relatable to people. And I always felt that 10cc really, right? For me was a very, very relatable band, and still is. And so, and just the fact that, like, when I think of 10cc, you know, I might think of Wall Street Shuffle, but you know, somebody else thinks of something else, right? Depending upon you know, your experience, and you know, what memories the music of 10cc would conjure for you. And so I know that you've done a lot with bands other than 10cc, but that was sort of the band that, from my personal experience, stood out for me. And you know, what was it like, man? Was it they were pretty huge at one point.
Yeah, they were going to be the next Beatles, and the reviewers and the reviews in the papers, all the musical press, love them.
Yeah,
and I think there's a few reasons. There's several reasons why they weren't that as big as they should have been. And you mentioned songs like Wall Street Shuffle, which
brilliant.
I tried to get that to the business program on America here, the NBC thing, because it's so obvious. But you're fighting against really hard people that just don't understand. I mean, Wall Street stuff is genius.
Oh, yes.
For art's sake, there's Mandy Fly Me. And Americans don't even know these songs. All they know is the things we do for love, and I'm not in love, maybe Dreadlock Holiday.
Yeah.
But now the reason, and don't forget, the 10cc were not, they were a studio band more than anything. And with the exception of the Eagles, I don't know that many studio bands that became into the A11 category, because ultimately you have to sell albums.
Yeah.
And the 10cc were very clever, but they were very varied. And the American radio stations were playing formatted music. So it didn't work for them. They wanted, for example, Breakfast in America by Supertramp. They wanted every track to be like the other track and the other track. So you have 3 brilliant tracks and the rest is all garbage. That's okay, but that's all right. They sold the albums, but every track had something. The Hospital song and the first album, all songs there were tremendous songs.
Yeah.
And the other thing was the band were very into sound. They were more into sound than visuality at the time. So they weren't going to put a show on. They were going to put their show on. They were going to go on stage in jeans with whatever it was. They weren't going to be Elton John or Freddie or anybody else that was going out there really selling an image.
Rock here. Yeah.
They were going to play, but the sound was going to be brilliant. And I said, it's not my idea of entertainment. I want to go see a show where the singer's singing flat, where notes are wrong, people are playing wrong notes. I want a live performance. If I want perfection, I'll buy the album.
Yeah.
And they just don't see that. And then Kevin Long, who total geniuses, have moved onto the video field, and what they did there was just astonishing. And if all that had been put together in an idea of package, we're going to look great, we're going to sell ourselves, we're going to do an image, all that, I think they would have been out of the division where they are, which is critically acclaimed as number one. But they're not the Beatles, they're not Pink Floyd, they're not that A1111, if you see what I mean. Although I think the music was.
Right. Good point.
No question. Yeah.
Yeah, great points.
The most exciting thing, which I tell people, they say, well, which track do you like the best? Well, there isn't one that I like the best particularly, because there's so many great songs like One Night in Paris and other things with just, there's so much humor and Rubber Bullets. There were great songs. But when you went in the studio, I heard I'm Not in Love, unmixed, in the studio. I never heard it before. And after about 15 seconds, I thought, well, this is just something that's so special. It had an atmosphere, much like there are lots of records have that atmosphere when you hear it. It's like House of the Rising Sun. It was more just in a song, or that organ. It was just out of this world.
Yeah, it's captivating.
10cc and I'm Not in Love. It's an iconic song which will be played in 100 years' time.
Yeah. Yeah, classic.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's got to be rewarding for you that somebody is that we're here talking about, Wall Street Shuffle 50 years on. I mean, it has to be,
Yeah.
And sometimes that's where the rewards come. They don't always come in the form of, wealth, right? For creative people.
Or instant success.
We'd have to change the lyrics from Howard Hughes to somebody else.
Yeah.
I could think of a few good people, but I'm not thinking of it.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah.
Yeah, very well. Was right. So, guys, to go back to we touched earlier was what Herman Hermits and how it unfolded. You had the B side. You're saying originally, but let's get back to how did you actually meet Herman Hermits? How did that start? We actually met the guys and formulated that idea of actually managing Herman Hermits.
Well, what happened was the first function of a manager in those days was to get a recording contract. Without a recording contract, so every group you had the Searchers, Freddie and the Dreamers, Wayne Fontana, they all had to have a recording contract to start with.
Yeah, that's right.
So I got a very full date sheet on the band. They really were. I worked them like mad. I mean, they did 2 or 3 dates a night, solid. Wow. So I was building up this following, and the girls loved it. Peter's fantastic looking. I mean, photogenic, unbelievable. I now look at photographs from those days, and they're just astonishing. He's got that image, that Kennedy, blue-eyed Catholic boy next door. Classic. If a mother saw him coming up the drive, that's okay. If a mother saw Beatles coming up the drive, she'll think, oh, God, what's that? And if a Rolling Stones come up the drive, they commit suicide. So it's the kind of thing. I had the boy next door, beautiful image. Right. So we got these dates. And then we're doing a lunchtime session at the Plaza Ballroom in Manchester. And I was very friendly with the manager there. And I said, look, you've got a letter from me. Can I have a look at it? So he says, oh, yes. And I said, could I borrow it? And yes, and the bottom it was by somebody called Derek Everett had written it. So I wrote to Derek Everett a load of nonsense, that how much I liked him, how we all admired him, this, that, and the other, a load of bullshit. And anyhow, can I come and see you? So he wrote back, said, yes, sure, if you want to come to London, come and visit me. So I came through the door. I'd sent him a picture of Herman and the Hermits, who had a great picture. And he said, as I walked through the door, he says, I'm sorry, Harvey, but I've nothing to do with the A&R department. I just physically sell records to dance halls. So at this stage, I was like, from elation of going to Manchester Square, where the Beatles were and everybody, under the floor thinking, oh, God. However, there's a guy, new kid on the block called Mickey Most. Would you like to meet him? Wow. So I said, yeah, okay, I'll go and meet him. So I went to see Mickey. I showed Mickey a picture of the band. He said, yeah, he looks quite good, the lead singer. I said, will you come up and see them? I said, yeah, I'll come up sometime. Anyhow, I go back to Manchester. I hear nothing, and I have a brainwave. I'm going to send Mickey Most 2 first-class air tickets and put him up at the Midland Hotel and say, will you come and watch the band play? So he did, and he came up, and the band were very good. And on the way back, I'm in the car, had my mother's clapped out Triumph Herald. It was like a wreck. But I'd invested in one of these record players, the original Philips record player, where you could put a 45 inside it.
Oh, really? Yep.
And the suspension was hell.
Memories.
And just as I drop him at the middle, and he says, by the way, I've got a record here. Would you like to hear it? I said, okay. And he puts on this Earl Jean version of I'm Into Something Good. He said, what do you think of it? I said, that is fantastic. He says, okay. So get rid of 2 of the band and you got a deal. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, the bass player and the drummer, they're just not up to it. I can't have them in the band. They're not good enough.
Okay.
So I've got the good and the bad and the ugly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm elated that he's got a great song for us. But I've now got the difficulty of getting rid of the
bass really.
So I went round to Peter and I said, look, we've got decisions to make. And of course, as I said, the priority of everything was to get a record deal. Without a record deal, you're nowhere.
Got nothing.
So we decided we had to do the nasty, well, not the nasty and the awkward thing. So the 2 boys came round. We told the first one, the drummer, I'm sorry, we've got to get a new drummer. Otherwise, we don't get a record deal and we don't get anywhere. And then Alan Wrigley came in and said, Alan Wrigley was a tough guy. His father, I think, was in jail for a capital crime. So he came from a very good background. So, and he was tough. He looked tough. And I wasn't relishing. I wouldn't say I was scared, but I was going to be careful. Next 2 weeks, there's going to be a knife in my back or something. So anyhow, he goes flying out of the room in a temper. And Peter and we sat down. We thought, okay, we'll go out and get a drink or something. So we went in the van. We had a Bedford van that took all the Vox amps and everything round. Everything went in this van. And as I drove into the road, Ian Wrigley is lying flat across the middle of the road. And I had to swerve to miss him. And I thought, oh my God, terrible. Anyhow, that's that. So he left the band. And it was a shame.
Yeah,
they were instrumental, and especially he was instrumental with Peter. He was very good looking. He looked like Marlon Brando, terrifically good looking, and he couldn't play the band. And Peter tells me the story. He once went with them, went to the Cavern with Alan.
Oh, in Liverpool! Wow, very cool.
And they saw the Beatles play.
Wow.
And Alan's, I don't want to use bad language. I'm on live, but. Alan says, we're done. We can't compete with this.
Yeah.
We did compete with that. And not only did we compete with that, we outsold them. In 1965, we outsold the Beatles the month of April, I think, for 4 weeks. We kept Help off the top with Mrs. Boney Got a Lovely Daughter.
Well,
so that was quite...
What a monster that was. Monster hit.
And we had 5 records in the top 30, and our firm had 1, 2, and 3 in the American charts with local bands: Freddie and the Dreamers, Wayne Fontana and the Mindbenders, and Herman's Hermits are 1, 2, and 3. So we were having. I was walking on air. Everything was going right.
Yeah.
I mean, with Graham, he was having hit after hit. He had No Milk Today, Heart Full of Soul, East West, No Milk Today. It was like, God, everything you did went, and even Mickey Most. Everything I touched, I don't know why, it just was an era where you had to go finger. And Mickey Most put out House of the Rising Sun, while before we'd actually recorded I'm Into Something Good. And that went to #1. Everything we touched, we're just very lucky. Of course, all luck comes to an end.
Yeah.
We rode it.
But that's amazing because, I mean, Mickey Most and also like Andrew Oldham, another guy that same era were so big bands they worked with in terms of songwriting, direction, like you're saying about picking certain people in the band, got to be replaced, got to change this guy, change this guy as well.
Yes, I got a lovely letter from Andrew Oldham today saying how much he enjoyed the book and that he was really thrilled with it. Yeah, he said it's one of the best books he's read since Tom Jones' biography and a few others that were really good music.
Wow.
So I phoned him up. I think he's in South America somewhere. I'm trying to get hold of him because I want to clarify some stories about Mick Jagger, which I know, and I know it too, but I don't want to say anything until I know they're really
Yeah.
I want to know what really happened because they're really interested. But of course, we played Nebworth which is the biggest
in England
venue, and we played the Rolling Stones and 10cc played together, and there were problems, and that was just something else. That was in 1977, and when we got there, somehow all the sound was wrong, or the wires had been tampered with, or something was terrible, and the band said, well, not Eric, who was very meticulous about sound. And I thought, oh, it's Eric's just being Eric. But it wasn't Eric being Eric. Somebody had actually done something to these bloody wires or something.
Wow.
And we suspected it might have been the Rolling Stones. Obviously, leading bands, when I say leading bands, the band that has the opening act controls the board. So ultimately, they do have the control. Keith Richard apparently had arrived there in a very happy state or something, not fit to go on stage. Anyhow,
Right.
5% of the audience would have gone to see 10cc, being generous, probably nearer to 1, and 99% wanted to see Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
So I said to and we were getting £27,000 for one gig, which was as much as we'd earned on a whole tour, 30-day tour, which is why I took the day. They never opened for anybody else. They refused to open for anybody. But we did that one. And I said to Fred Bannister, I said, look, why don't you just pay us and let Mick go on stage? It's 8 o'clock now. The fans have been waiting an hour and a half. Nothing's happening. They've not found out what's wrong with them. And we're not going on. And Fred Bannister, for some reason, said, no, I'm very sorry. You've got to go on. It doesn't matter what time. And I thought, well, that's ridiculous. But anyhow, we went on at about 10:30. Or something ridiculous. And the fans have been waiting 5 hours to get on. And then let 10cc go on and decide, in their infinite wisdom, to open with One Night in Paris. And you couldn't open with a worse number when you've got a crowd of 90,000 people waiting for Mick Jagger to do One Night in Paris opera that they'd never heard before. Anyhow, they got through it. And finally, by the time they got to I'm Not in Love, they got the audience over just about. And I worked it out afterwards that maybe they had fiddled with the wires, and maybe while Keith Richards was getting sober in the Nebworth house, getting ready to go on stage, maybe the Rolling Stones weren't ready to go on stage. Maybe this is just all a ruse, because I can't understand why, if I was the promoter, I'd have paid off the opening act and got Mick on time, because he was playing late at night. It was ridiculous. And now that was my experience with Andrew Lloyd Oldham and Nebworth. And that was the last time the 4 members of 10cc played together.
Interesting. Wow.
That was, really, really interesting.
Huh.
Of course, there was a lot that went on tangentially, right, involved in the music. That wasn't really about the music at all. The whole Carnaby Street and the fashion and
yeah, I mentioned that. Yes, it's true. It wasn't just music. It was a revolution of youth into fashion and to everything. Yes, that was true.
Cultural movement. Yeah, absolutely.
It was a fantastic time to be alive. If you're interested in music, it was just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but because it's, and this is something that comes up from time to time on the show. And we had a wonderful guest on, a young lady who was a big part of the punk revolution. And she said, when somebody comes to see the band, they come to see the band, not hear the band, right? And that's an interesting statement, I thought, because now you're talking about observing behavior. You're talking about bringing the fashion into it. You're talking about the personalities or whatever was bubbling beneath the surface, and the hopes that some of that might come to the surface. But I always thought that was a fascinating statement, and I think it's true. Somebody buys a ticket to go see a band, they buy the ticket to see the band. Hear them.
Absolutely. I think I mentioned that earlier. I mean, I see a show, and I don't care if the notes are out. I don't care if they're playing wrong notes. I don't care. What a performance. You see something like Freddie from the Queen.
Yeah.
Just astonishing what he could do.
Oh, yeah.
So true.
And on, really when you talk about, somebody that really isn't, he's not on the same level as everybody else, right? Freddie was like, a lot of people didn't really get Freddie as famous as he was,
I saw him in Kensington Market when he was 15. I went into the
Wow.
antique market, and there was this guy, and he had painted nails, full eye makeup. It was like Freddie was. And I said, "Who is that?" And he said, "Oh, it's something called Freddie. He's in some band. He's in some band. It wasn't Queen." And he was like that at 15. It wasn't, that was him. It was his natural self. But
Yeah.
but I reckon that Elvis Presley, Freddie Mercury, and who else? Frank Sinatra were probably the three iconic superheroes of the last century.
I would say, I don't know too. I was
There-
thinking even John Lennon too. You like went behind you there, be part of that list as well.
Well, that's tricky because it's Lennon McCartney. I don't think.
Yeah. However,
That's true. Right.
I mean, like Freddie, although it was in Queen, it was Freddie. When you saw Live Aid, it was a performance of a tremendous artist, and Elvis was on his own, Sinatra was on his own, but John Lennon. Well, when John Lennon was on his own, I don't think he was as big, he was as big popularity-wise because the music.
As a cultural figure, not as much in record sales, but a cultural figure. I think he was bigger in the 70s because of what he did in the 60s, and he had more of a lead. Something about his perspective that kind of drew a lot of people towards him on a large scale.
That's fair. Yeah.
And then, of course, there's George Harrison as well. Not too bad.
Oh, so true, right? So true.
And let's not forget that the perfect drummer for that band was Ringo Starr.
Yeah. Well said.
Very, very, very special act. Yeah.
4 special people got together and made that magical band happen. Changed the world. Changed the world forever after that. In so many ways.
Yeah, and here we are. We're 35 minutes into it, and I'm going to mention David Bowie, or Bowie or whatever.
Oh, it's another wonderful one. I love.
These are when you talk about sort of iconic folks, right? So there's iconic songs that we talk about, like Wall Street Shuffle, and there's iconic people who, when I think about David. I think about a particular time in my life, which is Let's Dance, right? So to me, because of my age and sort of where I was at in my life and sort of the summertime that I remember of Let's Dance, that's how I perceive David as opposed
to... the two things I came into touch with David by was the first thing was when Peter Noone left Herman's Hermits and became on his own, and Mickey Mouse got "Oh You Pretty Things," which was a David Bowie song.
Oh, wow.
That was a hit in England, "Oh You Pretty Thing." And then when it came to performing for Top of the Pops, which was the #1 show to break your record, because of musicians' union problems, and you're talking about unions and strikes, David Bowie came and played. He had to play because they couldn't allow they had to have the original members of the band playing. And he was on the record. So that was one instance which I thought was tremendous. And the other thing that I thought I was told, probably true, that under pressure with Queen, apparently, I don't know whether David Bowie just happened to be next door in the studio, but he wandered into the studio and took the whole bloody thing over and absolutely did not.
Yeah.
It was totally controlled by him, which is amazing, really, because it was Queen.
Yeah.
He just took over, did everything, and got that masterpiece out.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I've heard different stories about that, like how that unfolded. But that's very fascinating. How Bowie came in and basically took right over.
They're probably all true, Noel. Right?
I don't know. It could all be hearsay, but it was an interesting observation that somebody that was there told me. And you never know, because one person's truth is different to another. You get the same story told by different two people.
It changes.
Diametrically opposite.
Definitely changes. Exactly. Well, before
And I had
explore,
no problem with. I wanted to manage Queen when they
oh,
got rid of their managers.
oh, the
There was
first guy in 74, 75?
yeah, something like that. Yes, I spoke to Peter Grant, who was one of my best friends in New York. I said, "Why don't we put a joint bid in? We'll go together.
Wow.
You've got Led Zeppelin, the biggest rock
That's
band in the world.
huge.
I've had Herman's Hermits, and I've got 10cc. They can't refuse us. Let's go there." So we arranged for a meeting. We went there. So there was the four members of Queen. Incidentally, first of all, I softened the blow because I used to send Wimbledon tickets to Roger Taylor because he loved them. And also, I mean, I was very friendly with John Paul Jones, who did all the arrangements
Oh,
on
very cool.
on Herman's Hermits. All the Herman's Hermits records had John Paul Jones did all the orchestral arrangements. So it was like it was. I thought, well, we weren't going to have a problem. Peter Grant wanted to have a label called Swan Song, and
Right.
I think he wanted the band on the label. I wasn't bothered about that. I just wanted to manage them. So we went in the room. We pitched off our. We told them what we would do, and Jim Beach was sitting there. He was the accountant, and he ran the meeting. So there was 5 people, Peter and myself, and they said no. And I thought, I can't believe this. They then employed John Reed, who they slung out 2 years later. And I don't know why they did that. And well, I do have my suspicions, but it was just, I was staggered. Because maybe Peter Grant, they didn't want to go on Swan Song, possibly. I mean, maybe they just wanted to go on a first class label. I don't really know.
Yeah.
But anyhow, Peter and I, we go back, we have lovely stories together. My favourite 2 stories, which I like to tell you because I think you'll find them interesting.
Yeah, please do.
My wife Carol was a phenomenal chef, and he came to our house, Peter, and we've got beautiful furniture. Sits down in this chair, it falls on the floor. He was probably about 350 pounds at the time.
You're the big guy.
Yeah, big guy, smashed on the floor. And then he eats a whole side of beef, like a 15-pound thing of beef. And then we finished this wonderful meal. And my wife, just brilliant chef. And he ate that a lot. And he says, have you got any, Harvey, he used to speak like that, Harvey, have you got any cotton wool in the house? I said, cotton wool? What do you want cotton wool for? Well, I've got tickets for you for Led Zeppelin in an hour's time. And it's 4 hours, 4 yards in front of the bass amp. And I think you might need cotton wool. So that was the first. We went, and we with the cotton wool or without, we were blasted out. It was just unbelievable. And when we're in LA, my favourite one is Peter Grant. We like to eat. So we're talking about steak. So we'll go to the best steakhouse. There's a place called Lowry's Steakhouse, which was the place to eat if you're not vegetarian. So anyhow, I was with my mother and father. I went in one car, and he was going to join us there. So I get through the door, and the guy said, you can't come in without a jacket. So in my arrogant English manner, remember, the biggest manager in the world in my hand, get me one then. So the guy goes and gets me a serious leather jacket and puts it on. And I said, there's one thing. I said, yeah. So the last member of the party is very heavy. We can fit anybody. I said, okay.
Well.
Peter Grant arrives at the door, 400 pounds. The guy says, I pass.
Oh man, that's so funny. Because yeah, he used to be a former wrestler before he got involved with Yardbirds and later on Led Zeppelin. He's a big guy.
Well, the thing about him, yeah, everybody had this very. He had a charm. You've no idea. He to me was a pussycat. He was really lovely, but to other people, he was this fearful-looking guy that if you don't pay him, they're going to get killed.
He can shake you down. Yeah.
Don't mess around.
He had that look.
I must say he was totally devastated when Bonham died. That did him in. I mean, he was not the same person after that.
Well, I understood that he even quit managing bands altogether after Bonham passed away in 1980.
He was devastated.
Yeah. You know,
that's why I'm saying he was a guy that had feelings. He wasn't this monster that everybody paints him out. And
Right.
Managers always get either they're omitted completely, which is normal, or they're absolutely blasted, like the Colonel. I met the Colonel, who was very nice. we went to see Elvis when we were in Hawaii with Herman's Hermits, and I got this letter. Herman's Hermits and yourself will be very welcome to come and see Elvis if you come and see us shooting on the Polynesian village in Oahu. I thought, great, okay. And so we all get ready to go. And I could never understand why there was a photograph, which we've got, and only 2 members of Herman's Hermits were there. And I thought, why aren't the other members on there? And I found out a few weeks later, recently, that they kept changing the date apparently, and we just finished a world tour for 2 months, and Keith and Lek weren't going to wait, or Carl were not going to wait because it wasn't going to happen. Well, it did happen. So we went down to the Polynesian village, and I get there and I'm greeted by the colonel. Oh, a fat Jewish Epstein. So I thought, great, this is just what I needed, you know.
Yeah.
And then we went into the hut, and Elvis Presley's there. He's got nothing. He's got a white trousers, no shoes, no shirt, nothing, and he's got 6 people, all looking the same, all with the same hair, brill cream, you know, the whole lot. They're all standing there and everything. And if Elvis farts, they fart. You know, they laugh, you know, the king, whatever the king does, they did. That was the first impression I got. And then when we went outside, and I thought Peter was absolutely brilliant. I mean, he was only probably 16 at the time or something.
Wow.
And he says, hello, Elvis said, hello, you know, hello, in the deep voice. And Peter said, how is it you didn't make it without long hair? So Elvis said, well, it might have been the sideburns. Okay, right. So
it was long, so yeah, exactly. Long sideburns, the 50s. Yeah.
So that was my experience. And then I got very friendly with the colonel, obviously, and I got invited to all his parties and everything.
Wow.
And
So
on my son's 21st birthday, Paul, he was, I said to him, what do you want to do for your birthday? And he says, I want to go to Las Vegas. I said, Las Vegas? I was shocked, because I'm a mad gambler, but nobody in the family was a gambler. I thought the kids certainly weren't gamblers. So anyhow, we go there, and I said, you know, the colonel lives here. Maybe I should phone him up, and you can meet him, Philip and Paul, my 2 sons, and Carol. So anyhow, I phoned up his house, and the colonel said, oh, Harvey, I can't see you at the moment. I've got a dentist appointment. But if it's okay, I'll call you back, and maybe you can come. So I thought, oh, yeah, that's the end of that. Anyhow, an hour later, I get the phone call. I've got back now. Would you like to bring the boys around? So now I'm panicking. I need to get a limo, because whenever I met the colonel, there were always Cadillacs and four Cadillacs and God knows what, you know. And I thought, well, I can't go in a car. I can't go in a taxi. So I phoned up this firm. I said, look, would you send me a town car? I don't need anything fantastic, just regular town car and a driver. They sent this town car. It had bullet holes all the way through it. It was a mess. It looked like a wreck. So when I get to the colonel's house, I said, park up there, we'll walk.
Yeah.
Right.
The full
He
tilt around
did
it.
the limousine because it was so embarrassing to us. So that was the colonel, yeah. And he told me some fantastic stories about. He invented merchandising, which we all benefited from. For instance, Elvis was playing to, I think, 50,000 people somewhere in Carolina, and the forecast was for torrential rain. And he spent the night before trying to find an umbrella manufacturer to get 20,000 umbrellas. It's unbelievable.
It is.
And I know they say they all have a go at him and whatever he took. And my own response is, if he hadn't met Elvis Presley, you wouldn't have heard of Elvis Presley. He'd just be another country singer. And there are a lot of those of them.
So true. Yeah.
But you can't justify, you know, there's 2 sides to every story.
Right.
But the artist always tells a different side.
Oh, it's completely right, completely. But I thought even that movie Elvis that came out a couple of years ago was so well done. It's just basically displaying that very point that the Colonel's a very sharp, astute business guy. And it came to like merchandising, which is like, wow, that was brilliant.
The only thing wrong with that film was Tom Hanks had this dreadful accent, which had no resemblance to the Colonel. The Colonel had a southern put-on drawl. I remember it well. And I spoke to my friend. I said, why the hell did he have that accent? And apparently the producer of the film wanted to make it clear like he was foreign or something. But it wasn't his voice. It's nothing like it. And I thought that was a shame.
Yeah, you would know that. You would know that, and that's wild.
It shocked me. I mean, you'd think they'd do the research, wouldn't you? I don't get it.
Yeah, well said.
You would, yeah.
That's a big time movie, really, in terms of Noah's being told as a story and so forth. So yeah, I thought it'd be more accurate that way. But great point about that.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead. So go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying I was very upset at the time when I saw the movie. I thought it wasn't.
Yeah, it's a bummer. That is a bummer when you hear that. Yeah, completely.
Yeah, it's interesting how you see movies. I mean, the Queen movie was very sanitized. The Elton John movie was as it was. That was heavy duty stuff. And I thought that was very well done.
Yeah. I even thought the Doors movie that came out years ago was pretty well done in terms of the story of how I understood it, how it was told.
And I like the Brian Wilson thing, the Pain and Glory thing.
Yeah.
Fascinating individual.
Completely.
Genius.
Yeah, absolute genius is right.
I think his genius does elude many people because he wasn't very accessible until he was older,
Yeah. Very well said.
The I don't know about drugs, but I mean they were locked into a scene and they were in their own body. They weren't extroverted at all. They were into their own world. And if he could sit down and hear every instrument in his mind and know exactly what it's going to play and everything, rather like the Beatles,
Yeah.
There's just a total gift.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great gift. Well, guys, they're actually out of time already, eh?
I can't believe it. Harvey, man, I would love to have you back. There's
so many hours with you.
Talk to you about, man.
We can talk for hours with you.
Anytime.
Oh yeah.
Okay, we'll bug you real soon,
man.
We'll bug you for part 2 real soon.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll do the sequel.
Exactly. Precisely.
Listen,
the sequel's coming up soon.
I don't mind the sequel, but I'm not going underwater for anybody.
Don't worry. We don't ask for those kind of we won't go there. Don't worry.
We'll keep it safe, all above board. But just absolutely fascinating. And thank you so much for sharing that with us and with our audience. Really, what a tremendous benefit for the audience tonight to hear about those times.
No kidding.
Tremendous.
The legend, the iconic Harvey Lisberg. Yeah, exactly. Hey, thank you, Harvey. It was a great time talking with you this evening.
It's been lovely talking to
you. And I love the John Lennon behind you. I just love that portrait, man. It's absolutely beautiful.
I was saying a full on there.
Right on. That's gorgeous stuff. Very good.
Okay.
Well,
cool.
thanks, Harvey. Thanks, Harvey Lisberg, for joining us once again. And of course, folks, check out his new book. His new book coming out here. Actually, it's out right now, folks. Something good. That's Harvey Lisberg. And of course, thanks to Mr. Mark Duda, the co-host, for jumping on as well. Thank you, sir, as well. And remember, folks, check out Zingo TV for all the news. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it. And hey, man, love it. Thanks, folks. Again, real soon. Take care.
Love you all. Take care.